Good morning. It's an honor to be here for, I think, what is the third year in a row for me. It's always an exciting time to reach out and see some familiar faces and share what I think is one of the most incredible stories that we have in our agency and also in our nation, which is the NASA story. So thank you so much for being here today and giving us the opportunity and the platform to share that. NASA really has been at the forefront of some of the most incredible accomplishments our nation has seen, and through our history of more than 60 years, we have been able to reach some incredible milestones and make some incredible achievements, not just for the nation, but also on behalf of humanity. So looking to the future and all that we have yet to accomplish before us, NASA is having to use the same creativity and innovation that we have been using for the past 6 decades to ensure that we are able to lead the nation in space for decades to come. And in order to do that, we are having to do things that we have never done in order to come to a place where we can do things that we've never done. So today, to talk to us, we have an esteemed panel of leaders, not just from our mission directorates, but also from our centers, and who will be talking to us about some of the things that they're doing, both on a mission directorate level and on a center level, to be able to accomplish things that we've never done before. So I'd like to welcome to the stage first Mr. John McCullough, Deputy Associate Administrator for Integration in ESDMD. Next, I'd like to welcome Mr. Alvin, Director of Cross-Directorate Technical Integration in our SOMD. Following behind, we have Mr. Kelvin Manning, Acting Director of NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Also joining us today is Mr. Douglas Terrier, Associate Director for Vision and Strategy at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Next, Mr. Joseph Pelfrey, Director of Marshall Space Flight Center. And to round out today's panel, please welcome Ms. Christine Powell, Deputy Director for Stennis Space Center. We have a lot to talk about in just a little bit of time, so without further ado, I am going to turn over the podium to Mr. McCullough.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and see what the charts have. Thanks. All right, let's see. What a great title for a topic, doing things we've never done to do things we've never done. So we'll start with, for us in ESDMD, with what we are doing that we've never done before. I know you've seen this chart several times, probably this week, with different speakers, but a couple of things for this discussion that I want to emphasize is that each of these phases that we go through in this Moon to Mars implementation has things that have never been done before embedded in each of them, and that content is critical for advancing human exploration, and that each builds on the phase before it, managing risk and technology development in order to enable us to get to the ultimate goal that you see there, which is humans to Mars. The last several years, we have built a Moon to Mars architecture. That approach that seeks on a yearly basis feedback from the community to establish and evolve those Moon to Mars objectives that we use to establish the missions and the content. The objectives tie progress in each of these phases that you see to needed knowledge and capabilities that are driven by the requirements that we have to be able to enable us to go to Mars. It's really a question of resources, technology development, and demonstration. Our process traces the needs to objectives to advance human exploration. So our needs, our objectives, and our missions are all aligned to accomplish in a step-by-step fashion the mission that we need to have. We'll go into chart 3. So this is the initial capability demonstration content. These are the first 5 Artemis missions. Each demonstrate new capability for the initial phase of initial presence and establishing transportation, human systems, mobility, networks, and new science capabilities. So each of these build on each other. Each of these are challenging missions. And while you see 5 Artemis missions, there's really a ton of additional test flights and capability demonstrations that happen in between each one that aren't on this list. And we need to do a better job of conveying the stepwise fashion that we're demonstrating these capabilities. Moving on to chart 4. So then we move on to a foundational capability, and Artemis 6 and beyond begins to establish that human foundational capability. It further opens the door to advanced exploration, science, and the cislunar economy that we want to establish and encourage for our stakeholders. So let's go to the last chart I have. So this is really addressing the doing things in ways that we've never done before. You've seen this chart as well, I'm sure, but this really is about utilizing a variety of contracting and partnering opportunities and approaches. We've utilized on the left-hand side there, you see some initial core legacy capabilities that were developed with strong government control. And then you see we're followed into a services contracting approach in areas that have opportunity for commercial investment and uses. And so we want to encourage that opportunity that allows us to engage others as partners, both internationally and commercially, that have similar mission goals and opportunities to advance. This is the way that we establish evolvable core capabilities, standards, and interoperability that will allow us to enable a cislunar economy over time. We invest in, develop, and will transition to new capabilities, as you see them on this chart, as they become ready for human exploration. One of the other keys of this page is not everything is at the same phase. People look at one thing and they look at another and they go, well, why? There's different, temporally, there's a different phase of development going on for each of these. We're trying to encourage and enable technology development. So as soon as they're ready for human exploration, we enable that. We have robotic missions going to Mars, at Mars, in orbit and on the surface right now, but going there with humans is incredibly challenging. Sending humans to the moon is on the order of 1,000 times further than sending humans to Leo, and puts us on the edge of that challenging deep space environment that we need to be able to live and work in for extended periods of time to go to Mars, while still enabling a return on the order of days. And sending humans to Mars is 1,000 times harder than going to the moon, both technology-wise and distance. These are the natural building blocks that have been laid out to draw us into the heavens and for the advancement of humanity, and we must use them in sequence to become an interplanetary species and be successful in our missions. Our Artemis missions are the seed corn investments needed to develop and demonstrate human exploration capabilities, establish a cislunar economy, and provide a path to Mars with the resources that we have. It's a very challenging opportunity to work on, and I think the mission is just, it's an outstanding goal for humanity. So, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Space Operations Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters, and to see such an audience of folks out there who share our common goals in going out into space. Let's go to the next slide here. You got them up. Okay. At Space Operations Mission Directorate, we think about the fact that in 1961, President Kennedy challenged NASA and the nation to put an astronaut on the moon and bring them back safely in that decade. And it wasn't just about building a rocket or putting an astronaut on the moon. It spent as much time putting that Apollo program together, putting together a NASA that could support that Apollo program. Tracking networks, training, launch infrastructure, those pieces out there, the services that made that work. And that was as big an investment and every big an effort as Apollo itself. However, those things need to be maintained if we're going to continue to do those things and to go on to do things that we continue to do, things that we've never done before. And that's where Space Operations Mission Directorate is. In fact, the fact that we have a Space Operations Mission Directorate is something that NASA has not done before. And our organization dedicated to supporting mission operations agency-wide. And what you see there are the main efforts you see on the slide behind me, which is commercial space, launching things into space, both cargo and crew, which is something itself less of a novelty now than it was about 10 years ago, but it was something that NASA did not normally do. Human spaceflight capabilities, training and preparing astronauts to go on missions, whether it's to LEO, to the moon, or out to Mars. The International Space Station having a permanent orbiting laboratory up in space, and also a leaping off point for deeper space destinations. Regular launch services, procuring those launch services out there from industry for everybody else, not just those things going to and from the space station. And finally, our communications and tracking networks out there so that we can communicate and navigate our spacecraft in all parts of the solar system. Next slide, please. So what I would like to focus on this time is that part where we're the International Space Station and our commercial services, where you see us merging together those things. So when we did our first efforts out to the moon, there was no great space industry out there. The make or buy decisions were always going to be in favor of making things that are out there. 60 years on, there is a booming space industry, not just on the surface of the Earth, but in space now. Whether it's launching or providing us commercial destinations from which we can get work done. So you don't see an ISS-2 program that was ever proposed. We were always going to go to commercial offerings for those, and some of those are the ones you see out here, these commercial partnerships out there. And also, we already have commercial space ventures going out there, where there's astronauts out there, not all from NASA. In fact, I think we've become a minority in the recent years. Next slide. And so you see this burgeoning space industry, and how does NASA tap into it to achieve its goals? If we're going to go do exploration, we don't need to be doing our new things or continue to own and operate services that we can purchase around the Earth. And so we are collaborating with partners out there on all of those things you see there, be it transportation, be it the destinations, even commercial astronauts, and other things out there, and launch services that we're moving towards. Again, it was a case where it's a cultural shift from things we've done for decades, but I think we're mainly through that. And even we've seen commercial communication services where we are transitioning from owning and operating things like our TDRS constellation to purchasing services. And the moon, which I think is going to be born a mix of commercial and organic services, where our lunar commercial relay navigation systems going up around the moon is going to bring our signals back to the Earth as a commercial service, and that's something that NASA's putting up. Next slide, please. But it comes with challenges, especially with our transition from ISS, and that is foremost on our mind right now, is that we are on a trajectory to bring the ISS out of Earth orbit in about the year 2030. But we also have some mandates from our nation that we want to maintain a continuous U.S. presence in space, and it's a continuing heartbeat. So we're not going to plan to take any gaps where astronauts come down and go back up. And so we have to, like climbers going up a mountain dealing with their ropes, we want to make that connection before we break it. And so we are in the process of trying to bring on those commercial services and getting them to what we call an initial operating capability, such that we are comfortable moving over our operations to these commercial services before we bring down the ISS. Of course, we're subject to the vagaries of political budgets and markets and pieces like that. So how do we keep in flexibility to an aging space station, and also startup companies out there that really can't afford to necessarily weather those bumps in timelines? So how do we keep those viable? How do we keep our science and our payloads going, things that are going on outside the space station as well as inside the space station, that they have places to transport over to before we bring the space station down? And of course, making sure that the market is mature enough to do those pieces out there. And so that is uppermost in our thoughts right now. Just recently, we've released a commercial LEO destinations strategy from NASA that talks about how we're going to negotiate that. And then we're looking forward to the adventure of that day when we actually have our astronauts and our missions working for NASA from these commercial destinations. And with that, I'll yield the floor to Kelvin. Thank you.
Thanks, Alvin. And good morning. First of all, I'd just like to say I'm not Janet Petro. So it's a pleasure to be here with the esteemed panel members here and to see all of you. The space business, it's a small world, and we're all in this together. So next chart. Most of you are familiar with Kennedy's history, transitioning a government-only operation to Earth's premier spaceport as we retired the shuttle in 2011. Over the course of a decade, the commercial space industry really began to emerge, causing the spaceport's launch cadence to grow. Just 5 years ago, we launched 17 missions from the Eastern Range. By contrast, we started 2025 with almost 160 launches on our manifest. So we've seen a 720% increase in demand from 2011 to 2023, and we expect the commercial launches will outpace the government 3-to-1. Nowhere else in the world is launching with this frequency, and no one else has faced the unique challenges inherent to the work we are doing at the Kennedy Space Center. So the title of the panel suggests we're having to do things we have never done to be able to do the things we've never done. Looking critically and strategically at every aspect of our operations to be able to innovatively address those challenges and deliver on the commitment to provide continuous access to space from Earth's premier spaceport. Recommendations were developed to achieve these strategic goals and refined with feedback from our commercial launch providers, spaceport directors, member agencies, and several recommendations are already in progress. Next slide. Both Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station support every launch and every milestone operation that occurs on the Eastern Range, regardless of the operation's location. Kennedy's support includes delivery of propellants, as well as advanced planning, scheduling, and dissemination of planning information to minimize operational conflicts. As you can imagine, this launch cadence requires a high level of precision and coordination as we synchronize operations, not just with our partners at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, but also between service providers and our own spaceport organizations, as launch dates and other major operations frequently overlap. One of our biggest fears is having to say no to a launch or a major operation because we don't have the capabilities to support. So we really challenge our teams to think creatively and look for ways to eliminate inefficiencies. One great example of this is reducing and even eliminating some of the restrictions that were in place during certain launch scenarios. Historically, we have no-dig restrictions as well as communication and switching restrictions that were in place in the days leading up to the launch. And when you launch 17 times a year, 36-hour work stoppage isn't likely to have a major impact. But when you're launching an average of every 3 days, you can see how that can create a big issue. So our teams were able to meet with the commercial partners and determine certain parameters. For example, a non-crewed commercial vehicle with a certified automatic flight safety system, well, we would be able to roll back or even eliminate those restrictions, enabling the spaceport work to continue even hours before the launch. So the center is more than 60 years old, and it is the case for many old houses. Our infrastructure isn't always able to support the demand. So we recently had a scenario where 2 missions required access to our gaseous nitrogen line, but the commodity needs that were documented and submitted to the spaceport meant that we weren't able to support both of those launches. But our teams met, reviewed the requirements, and determined a path forward that would enable KSC to support both requests. I believe this also highlights the importance of relationships we've built with our mission partners as they help us develop creative solutions for previously undemonstrated launch support configurations. By working with our commercial partners, they're helping us find new ways of thinking with lower risk and demonstrating capabilities that can address these challenges in the future. Next slide. We're also examining our operations and continuing to look for ways to maximize efficiencies and reduce costs. So one of the benefits of Kennedy as a spaceport is the ability for our commercial partners to consolidate manufacturing, assembly, integration, testing, and payload processing to a single campus. And we were looking for ways to do the same with NASA. If you attended SpaceCom last year, you might have seen the keynote where NASA centers outlined their roles in Moon to Mars, focusing heavily on hardware manufacturing, testing, and assembly that take place prior to the arrival at the spaceport. So Kennedy is now in possession of that hardware for the next 3 Artemis missions. And High Bay 2 of the Vehicle Assembly Building, what you're seeing in the second panel with the blue structure, is an excellent example of how we are consolidating operations at the launch site. In addition to upgrading a variety of hardware and support infrastructure, High Bay 2 has been outfitted with new tooling to facilitate the vertical integration of the SLS core stage. This allows teams to complete vertical work before it is transferred and mated to the solid rocket boosters on Mobile Launcher 1, allowing parallel booster stacking operations inside High Bay 3 for Artemis 2. This move also doubles the footprint of usable space within the vehicle assembly building, giving engineers access to both High Bay 2 and High Bay 3 simultaneously, and frees up space at NASA's Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans to continue work on individual elements for future SLS core stages. And this is just one example of changes implemented to improve function, reduce processing time, and a net cost savings to the government. Next slide. The growth in the commercial space industry just hasn't increased the demand for processing, launch, and landing facilities. It's also creating a higher demand than ever before for skilled labor. For maybe the first time, NASA Kennedy Space Center is competing for labor talent in a market that is insufficient to meet the demand. The federal government is currently in a hiring freeze as they evaluate the path forward under the new administration. But moving forward, we realize that we're going to have to be creative and strategic in recruiting talent. And the ways that we have recruited before are not going to be sufficient in the environment where there is such strong competition. In addition, we recognize that addressing the lack of skilled labor in the market isn't just about recruiting better, it's fortifying relationships with academia and universities long before students become employees, creating a pipeline for employment that yields highly qualified candidates upon graduation. I'm immensely proud of the work Kennedy has done over the last few months to collaborate with the state of Florida to develop the Florida University Space Research Consortium. The first time ever a state university consortium will be directly affiliated with a NASA center. Just a few weeks ago, Kennedy signed a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, between the center and the consortium. And this symbolic relationship, this partnership, makes way for collaborative research opportunities and increased exposure to advanced technology, significantly enhancing NASA's research output in fields such as aerospace engineering, materials science, robotics, and environmental science, all which are necessary for long-term human exploration as we learn to live and work deeper into space than ever before. Next slide. So when we return to the moon, it will be from the Kennedy Space Center. We are launching humanity's future. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Douglas Terrier, Associate Director at Johnson Space Center. And before I begin, I just want to thank our organizers, our sponsors, putting together this amazing venue. Most of all, thank you guys for being here as we share in this very, very important conversation about what we're doing to prepare for easily the most exciting period in human space exploration. I'm going to spend a few minutes just telling you what we've been doing at Johnson Space Center and how we're evolving to prepare to be a catalyst for the expansion of space exploration across the government and private sector in the coming decades. Next slide, please. So for those of you who are not familiar, Johnson Space Center has been at this now for about 63 years. We basically got all the capabilities that are optimized around the design, development, training, testing, flying human spacecraft across the center. We have a large contingent at Johnson Space Center on site. We have all the facilities and mock-ups for training at the International Space Station, Orion vehicle, other spacecraft that we operate with. We train, of course, and house and take care of all the astronauts and the flight crews, for which we have the Ellington Center right adjacent to Johnson Space Center, where we have our flight operations. And we have a host of capabilities specifically for design, development, and test of spacecraft, including obviously Vibe facilities, altitude chambers, et cetera. And then we've got the White Sands test facility where we do our kind of energetic high-risk testing out in White Sands, New Mexico. Next slide, please. So before I get into this, let me tell you what I think is kind of the path, the arc of development of human space exploration, kind of in a nutshell in this slide. One way to think about this is this adventure started in the Apollo era in what was primarily a bipolar competitive environment, the US versus the Soviet Union space race. Obviously, we optimized our facilities. NASA, in fact, was created to realize that goal of US leadership in that space race. And we achieved that goal. We then moved on to what I kind of think of as kind of the second era of space exploration, where we evolved from a bipolar environment to a multinational collaborative environment with the shuttle space station era. And similarly, Johnson Space Center has evolved to optimize the capabilities in our workforce, our facilities, our processes to enable that successful operation of what was initially 15 close international partners, major space agencies leading the way in space exploration. As we look to the future, we see that continuum kind of expanding even further, the dimensions that problem, of that challenge, if you will, expanding from what was primarily government led international large space agencies to now the emerging space agencies of a host of international emerging countries, including up to 70 odd space agencies across the world in countries such as South Korea, Brazil, the United Arab Emirates, and a host of others. As well as exciting developments in the private sector. So we have what is now a very large, multidimensional, and vibrant space community. And our goal in a nutshell is to continue to evolve so that we can serve as the center, the hub of human space exploration to serve that entire community. We've undertaken an effort called Dare, Unite, Explore, which is kind of our internal nomenclature for our transformation effort, which I lead. And it focuses on our workforce, our facilities, and our product and processes to really, as I said, optimize our operation to serve as that catalyst, both for our internal NASA customers who you just heard from, as well as for all of the community internationally and our commercial partners. We have 5 basic aspirations that guide our goals to ensure that we, on behalf of the agency and on behalf of the United States, continue to lead this global community, that we're driving the exploration of new destinations in urgent fashion with the United States in leadership, and that we're providing the capabilities to revolutionize that experience in space while creating game changers, and by that we mean the workforce, that is the innovative workforce to enable that result. And our investments and our partnerships are intended to propel, as I said, the entire space economy forward. Next chart, please. So I'll just share with you in closing a few of the things that we're doing specifically to enable that future that we envision. And we're organized into a couple teams around workforce, around our products and processes, and around our facilities. In the workforce area, as you can imagine, a team that was optimized to work with an international, primarily government partnership is now modernizing, becoming more agile, becoming more adept at working with particularly the private sector community and the growing international community as well. To do that, we have several programs, particularly around mobility, training, recruitment, in which we stress having our workforce have, for example, rotational programs with industry, with other government agencies, with our international partners, so that we can learn the skills of how to be a better partner, better provider, better customer for the entire community. And we're also taking a lot of initiatives to just ensure the well-being and resilience of our workforce internally as they deal with what is now an increasingly challenging environment. In our products and processes area, we've taken a lot of initiatives to ensure that we streamline our processes to make ourselves, again, a better partner, customer, and provider to the community. Among the examples I can give you is we looked at things as everything from the transactional stuff like Space Act agreements, which some of you may have dealt with, to ensure that we were being more efficient and more accessible in processing those. We've instituted something called a front door, which I invite you to go look at online, Johnson Space Center front door, where we've now made our capabilities, our facilities more accessible, more available to the entire community in a one-stop location where you can understand what the capabilities are, how to access those, right points of contacts, pricing models, et cetera, to make it very easy for us to develop partnerships. I'll mention that particular initiative has been taken up by the agency, and we're currently developing an agency front door, so you have an agency-wide view of our capabilities. In the area of facilities, we looked at what we have, again, facilities that were primarily focused on our internal NASA programs, and we're expanding and prioritizing our facility developments to enable us to be available to our international and our private sector partners. One specific thing I'll mention is what we call Exploration Park. We looked at the capabilities inside the fence. We're aware that our commercial partners, and particularly the international community, have sometimes there's some hurdles to working inside the fence. So we wanted to develop an external research park where we can attract and house everything from startups to space companies as well as academia. We have partnered with the state of Texas and the Texas Space Commission, and I'm happy to say we broke ground on that last month, and we look forward to seeing many of you as partners and residents there. So I'll close with that, and thank you all for your time. I look forward to talking to you individually.
From the brilliance of the greatest generation, NASA Marshall emerged, casting a bright legacy. Once, we stood as the nation's pride, pioneering advanced technology on a scale that only the immense resources of America could foster. Now, with unwavering dedication, we've built expertise and infrastructure to not only honor the past, but to propel us into a brighter future.
Ignition. History tells us what happens to nations that forget how to dream.
At our inception, NASA was an inspirational beacon of innovation. Through the combined efforts of Marshall Space Flight Center and the passion of the North Alabama community, we achieved the monumental, placing a man on the moon and igniting dreams that soared beyond the stars. In this evolving world, we're interconnected like never before. Innovation beckons at every corner. Technology, not just confined to the mighty, empowers even the smallest enterprises to envision systems that were once fantasies of entire nations. In an era where humanity will delve into the farthest reaches of the universe, breaking boundaries and confronting unparalleled challenges, our expertise becomes not just valuable, but essential, fueling scientific and technological breakthroughs on Earth and beyond. Marshall stands committed as a trusted ally, rich with experience and infrastructure, ready to help you shape the space economy's future. An approachable partner, investing in our small business communities and collaborating with industry to further innovations. An international teammate, extending your reach across the globe in the boundless expanse of space or the next life-altering invention. We are more than a mission or project. We are the very soul of exploration. And we are on a relentless journey with you. In our next chapter, there is more to achieve, there's more to explore, more to learn, more to inspire, more to innovate, and more to dream. And there's more to gain when we do it together. Collaboration isn't just our goal, it's our defining strength. There's more to Marshall.
Good morning. Marshall Space Flight Center is on a change journey, a journey that started a few years ago, where our North Star for that journey is a future enabled through strategic partnerships, but rooted in the technical expertise that is a part of our legacy. It's clear that our space enterprise is changing, and it's our role to evolve with it. And we have many examples of where we're trying to demonstrate that. We have a lot to learn. But we are committed to evolve with this enterprise. So doing things that we haven't done before, to do the things that we haven't done. For us right now, that means partnerships and how we do partnerships. Partnerships have been a key part of our history from the very beginning. But the way that we do those, the way we enable those, the way we collaborate with our partners is what's changing for us to be able to accomplish big goals for the nation. The Chrysler Corporation, yes, the automobile company, was a key partner for the Army Ballistic Missile Agency, which was the original foundation for Marshall Space Flight Center. They developed the Redstone rocket and later became the prime contractor for the Saturn 1B. Partnerships started at the very beginning of our center. The Chrysler Corporation went on to do some other marvels of engineering, like bringing you the K-car and the Grand Caravan.
But today, our partnerships look different. As Marshall leads the human landing system development with 2 providers, both SpaceX and Blue Origin, to enable America's return to the lunar surface, we are working through innovative partnership agreements enabled through an acquisition strategy that was new in itself and a new way of doing things. Through a services model that included the opportunity for government task agreements and collaboration tasks, the partners are able to tap into the expertise at the agency in a more streamlined way. And we build that in on the front end of the project. And so the example, we have many examples for both partners where we're helping them solve problems to enable our combined mission success. Recently, we embarked on testing thermal materials and tiles for SpaceX in one of our specialized thermal facilities. Under a Commercial Space Act launch agreement with Blue Origin, we handed over the keys to the historic test stand at Marshall. And they have provided tremendous investment and are now testing both BE-3s and BE-4s in the Rocket City once again. And I live very close to the Arsenal, and there's nothing better than having your windows rattle every other evening almost, it seems, about dinner time. I hope they sell windows on Amazon because I may need some. We also have a reimbursable Space Act agreement where we're working with Blue Origin and helping them test and develop the BE-7 engines, which will be part of their lander design as well as other missions in the future. Habitation systems is an area that Marshall continues to lead to enable our crews to live and work in space and do the science and exploration we need them to do. We partner with industry to look at novel designs like inflatable habitats, looking at the materials and testing those materials there at Marshall Space Flight Center to understand their performance, their strength, and burst activities. It's fun to contribute to the noise on Redstone Arsenal beyond what the Army does in blowing things up every day. The Commercial Crew Program has been a key part of NASA's transformation to enable commercial space. And Marshall is proud to have been a major part and continue to be a part of helping those commercial providers certify their launch vehicles by using our launch vehicle expertise and propulsion expertise to ensure that those vehicles are safe for our crew and our cargo. And this has been a tremendous partnership with the Kennedy Space Center and the Johnson Space Center and the entire agency in working to ensure that we can continue to have the crew presence that we have in low Earth orbit. So this year, Marshall celebrates our 65th birthday. 65 years of innovation and expertise that has enabled some of the greatest achievements in space exploration that our nation has seen. From the amazing accomplishments of the Apollo program to the groundbreaking science on the International Space Station to the elements that we're leading today within the Artemis campaign, Marshall continues to find ways to collaborate and partner to enable mission success for the nation. So as we look ahead, our future is going to look different than our past, but it will be no less bright. And we hope you'll join with us in doing that. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Christine Powell, Deputy Center Director from Stennis Space Center. Next chart, please. So for those who don't know, yes, NASA does have a Stennis, a space center in Mississippi. We're about an hour outside of New Orleans and have been testing for the agency in primarily propulsion areas since the Apollo program. All of the stages were tested there, and we have been continuing that legacy with Space Shuttle Main Engine certification and now onto the RS-25 test campaigns where we test for the Artemis program. Again, for those less familiar with our center, we do have a buffer zone of about 125,000 acres that allows us to test 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, where we don't shake too many windows in our neighborhoods, but we have been known to do that as well. About 13,000 acres is the core in the heart of our research and development and technology operations hub. We have over 50 federal state, local agencies and commercial partners there, including the DoD special boat teams, different industry partners. And we have about 5,000 acres, a little more than that, that are still available for development there. We've really focused over the last several years, in particular as the agency has evolved into becoming more and more aligned with partnerships with commercial industry, to really shape the Stennis model to provide multiple business cases to support industry, academia, and the government as necessary. And so we have a lot of different capabilities there. Most people think of the large engines and the stages that we test. But we're really here to partner with industry and to partner with whoever may need our services, whether it be a small component, a subsystem, a tank, a vessel, you name it. We have some amazing skills there. We're also challenged as some of the other centers sometimes because we do have more commercial interest there with sharing those resources and the skills and the workforce there. But our unique infrastructure really helps enable the mission, whether someone needs to come obtain test services from us or is looking to lease one of our underutilized facilities or even develop their own test capability in green space. We're really looking to be more and more of that partner in the future and to have operations there with our Stennis International Airport right out our back gate and all of the different capabilities that we have in our region. Next chart, please. And so we are the front end of space exploration. We did test all of the engines that are ready and prepared for the Artemis 1 through 4 missions, and we're working with L3 Harris and any of the upgrades and changes that they're making to the engines for the next test campaigns as well, for all the flight certifications there as well. We're also preparing our Thad Cochran test stand for the green run testing of the exploration upper stage, and doing an amazing amount of commercial testing in our E-complex, which is more of our R&D facilities there. We really do have some great expertise and infrastructure there with cryogenic operations and technology development, working with satellite autonomous systems and intelligence systems for health monitoring, things of that nature. And even our large and small scale test infrastructure construction experience have been leveraged across the agency and with some of our partners as well. Next chart, please. So at Stennis, we take our responsibility for helping to ensure a healthy commercial and national aerospace industry to heart, whether it's a small company who needs support services in the very beginnings of their startup, all the way through some of the more mature companies who have their own capabilities. We're here to bring our unique assets however we can to help ensure the future of our national capabilities. You'll see some of our partners that we have performed testing for, as well as those that have conducted their own test campaigns, either with their small skids or with leasing out facilities there at the center, including Rolls-Royce with some aircraft hydrogen technology development as well. Next chart. So this is just a little snapshot. You know, we talk about doing the things that we've never done to do the things we've never done. We have continued to test and evolve our models. Last year, we conducted over 67,000 seconds of testing with over 400 acres of project-ready certified land ready for the next companies to come in and stand up their models. We also have our research and development and our range operations there so that we can be one hub for innovation in the future. And that's our story. We hope you come by and visit us one day and take a look on our socials to get a little bit more about us. Thank you.
Answering that too quickly, I think. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. I am really struck. We're going to take a few questions, but I think we are almost at the end of our time. But I just want to say really briefly, one of the things I'm really struck by, excuse me, is that common thread that is kind of through each one of your presentations, and just the idea of the things that we're doing, the synergy that we need, the partnerships that we need to do it. the connection that we have, not just between each of our mission directorates and each of our centers, but also the work that we're doing with our commercial partners, the dependency that we have with them to be able to develop these technologies and to be able to help us get to where we need to go in the future. And then on top of that, one of the things I thought was really interesting as well was the connection that we need to these academic spaces and the partnerships we need with academia, creating that pipeline to employment and helping us with those technological and the technology that we need, the advances in technology we need to be able to do that. So I'd like to thank each of you for coming today, for sharing. I think it was very eye-opening for me to be able to see what we're doing, and I hope for each of you today joining us who have an opportunity to see how we're doing things we've never done so that we can do the things we've never done, and how there really is room, I think, for everybody to be able to partner with us and do that and take us to where we need to go. I think, Mr. Pelfrey, you summed it up perfectly. Our past is very bright, but our future is even brighter, and we have a lot more ahead of us. So thank you very much.